I learned that I have a really serious gluten intolerance. I had always been angry and always had a lot of self-confidence issues. I was on medication for anxiety and ADHD and other things. So we went gluten-free, and on January 1st, I think it was 2012, feeling great, everything was fine, but you don't really think about how much it affects you as a whole until you've been off it for a while. I just kind of had this new confidence of things that I could do, and I've always been a bit of an entrepreneurial person. I've always had thoughts, I could do this, I could do that. I finally got a bottle, and I got the marketing girl down the hallway to make a label for us, and I got the marketing guy that does their website to do a website for me for a case of beer, that kind of thing, right? And it was crazy. It was a hit. So we sold out basically every week. We'll see how this kind of plays out with the tariffs and stuff. And for revenue, we finished 1.5 this year as far as revenue goes.
I'm really excited today to have Paul from Yeshi Dressing here on the Business Vancouver Island Podcast. We've been meaning to meet for probably over 2 or 3 years now, but this is the first time we've had a chance to connect. I've had his dressings in my hands all over my salads. So thank you, Paul, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. I just wanted to start off. You were just telling me about a great trip that you were on down south, but let's start off. How did you end up here on the island and then doing business on Vancouver Island?
Okay. I was born in Calgary. So born and raised in Calgary. Barbara, my wife, was also born and raised in Calgary. We both went to SAIT, which is the technical school there. Barbara went for professional cooking, and I went for IT. I went back years later for IT. Had our children and everything, and grew them up in Calgary. During 2005, 6, 7, I was working at a software company that made software for the drilling rigs. My commute was on the other side of Calgary from our house. And Barbara was watching kids at home. She was staying home with our family and then taking in a couple of other kids to make extra money. The infrastructure in Calgary changed so much over those 3 or 4 years because they had a real huge boom there. I think the whole country did, right? Pre-2008.
Yes.
And our home values went up so much that we were like, Kate, we can't stand the influx of people that are here. The infrastructure hasn't kept up with it because it can't. And we were like, hey, let's jet. So where do you want to jet to? My mom lived in Creston at the time. And so we were thinking about Creston or Nelson in that area. Barb said, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. And we'll go straight to the island and be by the ocean, right? And I was like, okay, that sounds good. I had a friend of mine who lived here already. So he came out and saw him. And this was in February 2007. And it was like sunny and like 4 degrees or something compared to minus 25 or whatever it was in Calgary at the time. So I was like, came back and I said, we're moving here. That's it. And by the summer we had sold our house and moved here and basically paid the same as our house was worth in Calgary at the time because of the way the market was. It's a slow growth here, but up and down in Calgary, right? Depending on the market. So we ended up with a half an acre overlooking the airport from Mill Bay side. And in Calgary, we had just a regular lot in the city. So it worked out really good.
That's overlooking the Victoria Airport.
Yeah, Victoria Airport from the Mill Bay side. Struggled, of course, because in Calgary at the time and through my whole life, it's like there's so much work there. If you want to work, you work. You want to go across the street, you got a job, basically, right? If you're willing to work. And here, it took me about 6 months to kind of find work. So it was a little bit of a dip in the financial part of things. Ended up working for a plumbing firm, a mechanical firm in Victoria, doing estimating, that kind of a thing, and getting into some estimating. And then 2008, kind of all of his projects dried up by 2010. And so his company kind of couldn't take the expenses that he had, and it didn't work out so well. So I ended up trying to start my own business through that whole downturn and everything, which didn't go so well. And in 2013, in the beginning of 2013, I ended up at Brentwood College school. And which is like 3 minutes from our house.
Yeah.
Barbara ended up there a month later because, I mean, you know somebody, and Barbara's a cooking background, so they needed somebody for the kitchen. And I was in the IT department. Love the people, love the community around it all. In 2000, well, just prior to starting at Brentwood College, I learned that I have a really serious gluten intolerance.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was a bit of I'd always been angry and always had a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of anxiety. I was on medication for anxiety and ADHD and other things. And in 2011, Barbara bought me the book Wheat Belly. So
Yeah.
of course you read the book and you got the disease, right? So I'm like, hey, we're going to go and we're going gluten-free straight away. And so we went gluten-free. And on January 1st, I think it was 2012. And I was like feeling great. Everything was fine. But you don't really think about how much it affects you, like as a whole, until you've been off it for a while. So Valentine's Day came along, February 14th. So we're 6 weeks into our gluten-free journey. And I was going to order a pizza for the family. And they didn't have gluten-free crusts. So I was like, forget it, just get the regular one, no big deal. Because I didn't see or feel that much of a change in myself. And so we got home, ate the pizza, and I had the biggest meltdown I've ever had in my life. My anxiety was crazy. I was confused. I couldn't think straight. I was yelling at the kids. Ripped a cabinet off the wall at some point, like just being angry, right?
Yeah.
Like a road rager, really.
Yeah.
So couldn't control it. And kids are scared to death of me, of course, right? So the next day, obviously, I was like, okay, that obviously had to do something with the pizza. So we stopped eating gluten again and went on the journey of being gluten-free. And this is right prior to starting at Brentwood College. So I'm kind of like, I'm kind of relearning who I am again as this calm person. And so everything went great for the next few years. But as I kind of worked at Brentwood and was now on this gluten-free journey, my brain kind of started to heal. I had a lot less anxiety. In 3 months, I was off all my medications. And so I just kind of had this new confidence of things that I could do. And I've always been a bit of an entrepreneurial person. I've always had thoughts, I could do this, I could do that. I never had the confidence to follow through on it. This dressing kind of showed up on Brentwood's salad bar. And the way they kind of do their lunches at school is that a lot of the staff goes first and then the students go after. And the students would never get to try this dressing because the pots were always empty. So every time they made it, gone. So I'm like, hey, right, let's start thinking about selling this. Like, this is crazy. It's like market research, right? So I talked to Barb about it and she's like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, you can. I think we can do this, right? And she's like, no, you can't. So she was like totally out. And then for about a year, I bugged her. And finally she's like, okay, go do it then. So at this time, it was about end of 2016 or something like that. And I started doing research and starting to figure out what was available. Obviously, this wouldn't be possible in like 1979 or 81 or whatever because you don't have the internet, right? So you just can't go on and look for suppliers of bottles or whatever. So that's what I did, and trying to do research on how to do UPC codes and all that kind of stuff. I just did all of that research on my computer at home. I finally got a bottle, and I got the marketing girl down the hallway to make a label for us, and I got the marketing guy that does their website to do a website for me for a case of beer, that kind of thing, right? So just cobbled it all together, right? And we went to the farmers market in James Bay the first year in 2017 in May, and it was crazy. It was a hit. So we sold out basically every week. And it was by the end of the summer, customers are coming back to us saying, okay, we're a little bit worried now because when the market ends in October or end of September, where are we going to get your products? And I'm like, I don't know. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I was just like, we're making an extra $300 a week here. Like, this is great, you know? So it just kind of snowballed from there. And they're like, oh, you got to go talk to these people and you got to go talk to these people. Because, I mean, Vancouver Island's a pretty small community, right?
Yeah.
So they helped us like find which retailers and said, go talk to this guy at the root cellar or go talk to this person at Red Barn Market. And so we ended up having to rent a commercial kitchen because for the market, we were doing it at home. So we had to rent a commercial kitchen in Duncan. And we got our first retailer was the Old Farm Market in Duncan.
Nice.
So that worked out. They ordered like 2 cases or something like that. So we had to go to the store, go to the commercial kitchen, drag all of our stuff there, make it, drag it all back and then we did it twice a week. So then we got the Root Cellar, I think was our next one. And then Cobble Hill Country Grocer.
Yeah.
And then the Red Barns came on. And I was thinking, hey, might be a thing. Like we have a concept here, right? That's actually working. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we can just go and try to do this even more, right? So go up the island and start knocking on doors and talking to retailers in Victoria. And I think it's different in this community because of our local focus. Like I was able to get into 50 stores that want local products.
Yeah. And so how long did that take to get into those 50 stores?
50 stores, I think I was in there before the spring.
Okay, so within a year.
Yeah, spring of 2018,
like
kind of.
Almost 8 months.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, and of course, I have a job, right? So I'm doing it off the side of my desk, right? Which is great because Brentwood was super casual about their, the employment structure and stuff. I mean, obviously I work there, but you take a phone call in the middle of the day. Well, I would just try and make that back up as much as I can. And they knew it and I knew it. And right, it was very kosher with them. And I would put in extra hours and I would coach, right, some of the teams and I would, hang out. They have a
What did you coach?
Hockey.
Nice.
So I coached hockey with them. I was pushing pucks around. It wasn't.
Yeah, but I mean, Brentwood, they have a lot of international students, right?
They do.
Right. So and a lot of mostly boarding students.
All boarding students. Well, yeah, mostly boarding. There's like 50 kids that are maybe local.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of parents to volunteer, right? So it's like a lot of schools, it falls on the teachers.
That's right.
And in this case, if they have the infrastructure, the other parent or the other staff, and coming from Calgary, I mean, you know how to put the skates on right.
Exactly. Yeah. And this too. Like I started a jiu-jitsu program there, which is still running, right? So started as a sport for them. That's what I do as a sport. Jiu-jitsu. So we got into 50 stores and I was driving up and down the island. But what that does in this community is it gives me a number that I can take to Thrifties and I can say, hey, look, I'm selling in 50 stores and these are my numbers. And they go, oh, we want you in our stores. So now all of a sudden you're in 75 stores, right? And it's like, oh, okay, well, how do I get onto the mainland? Right? Well, that's a completely different story altogether because I'm not driving over there. I have a full-time job. Like I can't take Thursdays off to go, so now I need a distributor, right? But they wouldn't talk to me before having Thrifties or before having like an account that gives them an actual number or a reason to pick up from you, right?
Yeah.
So he started with a small distributor in Victoria. They got us into about, I think, 10 or 15 stores on the mainland. And then that relationship kind of broke down. And then there's a company in Duncan that makes salads for the salad bars for Thrifties. And they helped us. They worked with us. They did distribution and we piggybacked on some of their salad channels and whatnot. And we got into about 350 stores through them.
Wow.
On the mainland, yeah.
A local Dunkin' company?
A local Dunkin' company, yeah. It's called Jade Fine Foods.
Jade Fine Foods. Okay, great.
Yeah, they're a super great company. They also own Arbutus Farms, Arbutus Ridge Farms. They make the little potatoes in the vacuum seal packs and stuff at Country Grocer and Thrifties. But yeah, great company. And they helped us to get as far as their reach could go. So then obviously you have to make a business decision and you say, okay, we have to go to the next level then, right? Because their reach wasn't into Alberta, right? So they couldn't make it for us into Alberta.
Yeah.
And so got another distributor out of Vancouver and they were more national, not quite national, but more national. And then they got us to about 1,000 stores. Right. And then so that ended up being around, I guess the first one, 350 was just pre-COVID is when we kind of let go, or just post COVID when we kind of let go of that relationship.
Okay.
And the other guys was about 2020, late 2021. We switched to the new the distributor we had. They got us to about 1,000 stores, and then I had to make a decision on how I'm gonna kind of proceed as far as cash flow goes, and coverage for people, because you have one distributor, it doesn't cover everybody in northern Alberta, let's say, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So I made the decision to break that relationship and go with four distributors across the country. And then that way I have 4 people ordering, so I have better cash flow, and I have more coverage in the rural areas of the province of Western Canada for sure.
Okay. And how far east are your products right now?
We're in about 400 stores in Ontario.
Yeah.
And so that's about where we go. I think there's 1 or 2 in the Maritimes that are kind of picking it up through a distributor or an online something. I don't know where they're getting it, but it showed up when I looked. And so mostly everywhere in Western Canada that you can find it. And then to the east, it's starting to become a thing in Alberta now. I had a couple of people, really kids, like teenagers, they're like, "Oh, I love your dressing. My parents buy it all the time." All my friends, and I'm like, "You sound like we did here in about 2018." That's what. So it takes a few years for all these things to grow, right?
Yeah.
So and then we just picked up a chain in Ontario called Farm Boy. There are 50 more stores, so it's starting to grow on that side of the country. And now of course, that we have a pool of stores where people can get it, we can start doing some marketing out there. And then, because it's hard to do mass marketing for 50 stores unless you're targeting. But I don't think that the online marketing works so well for a retail product. But
yeah. And I imagine it's a lot of partnerships. My brother's in the flavored liquor, used to be in beer. It's a lot of partnering with your retailers.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. They want to see you support it, right? So they want to know that you're not just going to get a product and stick it on the shelf somewhere and then never talk to them again, right? They want you to put it on sale. They want you to come in and do demos. They want you to see you in the store, meet the managers and that kind of stuff too, if you can.
Yeah.
Right? If you can. Obviously, I can't do that in those Ontario stores. But at some point, then you have to hire a rep out there, and they have to make those rounds, right?
How many employees do you have on the island right now, and where are you manufacturing?
We have 2 full-time employees and a part-time marketing person that just started. We were doing all our manufacturing. This is a bit of a story. I'll tell you this. So we started in our kitchen when we were at the farmer's market. Then we went to the commercial kitchen in Duncan that we rented. And while we were in there, this was 2018. While we were in there, I was like, we can't keep doing this. Like it's going to cost a fortune to build a kitchen. So I built out, like I said, we live on a half acre in Mill Bay. And so I built out my garage and got VHA to come and inspect it as a commercial kitchen. And because of the nature of the product that we had, and because of the location and the way the water was and the way the septic was and all that, they said that we're fine doing our product in our garage because it's a shelf-stable product. So they approved it as a commercial kitchen. Of course, it's all decked out in stainless steel and everything, right?
Yeah.
And I had a shipping container in my yard to start for supplies that shouldn't really be in the kitchen and that stuff. So we started doing that in 2019, end of 2018, early 2019. That took us through COVID. And through COVID was actually really, really good for us because I just bought all the supplies I needed, and then all the supply chain goes to hell, right? So I have all the supplies I can manufacture in my garage, and we just got Thrifties and a couple of other large retailers. And so I was able to ship at least all of the supplies that I had through those few weeks, and all the shelves are empty everywhere, and there's Yeshi being shipped. So I think we gained tons of customers at that time.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So we did that in the garage till end of 2021. And in our last year in the garage, we did 200,000 bottles out of our garage. I had trucks coming up and down the driveway every day. I'm giving bottles to the neighbors, trying to keep them, say, hey, don't complain about me yet. So yeah.
Oh wow, I think that's got Steve Jobs beat. You're not sending out a little bit of code. You're getting, big trucks backing up. Beep, beep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a great story. And so where are you manufacturing now?
So now we have a co-packer in Vancouver or in Abbotsford.
Yeah.
That started out as well, we were doing our manufacturing in the garage, and then we moved it to Cobble Hill, a facility that we have in Cobble Hill, which is now our test kitchen. But it just became too much
Yeah.
to ship things to the island, manufacture, and then ship off again, right? If we could get products like delivered directly to the island, and that cost, but the logistics are not the same of getting it here. They all got to come to Vancouver, then cross dock, and then come to the island. At least for my products, they did anyway. So, and of course, we're not big enough to buy direct from these huge suppliers and have the space to have a truckload of whatever, canola oil, like 24 pallets of canola oil, that kind of thing. So we don't have the capacity or the space for that. So we had to move the production to a co-packer. I mean, it changed the product a little bit, and there are some still things that are getting kinks that are getting worked out, but they're getting worked out. So we're pretty happy with the product that's coming up, especially the product that's coming up right now.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And you just got back from California as well?
Yeah, we've been moving down the West Coast, kind of trying to build our US market, which tariffs don't help, by the way. I don't know what's going to happen, but at least I'm sure they'll figure it out, but we're going to keep going forward because we don't have that much going on down there, but it's a big market. So, in October last year, I think we loaded into a store called Gelson's, which is in LA. And then we got a few stores. We got a store chain in just outside of Seattle called Hagen. It's 15 stores. A couple in Northern California, 15, 20 store chains, that kind of thing. And so we went down to LA to go and do a working vacation. And we did demos in 15 of the 30 stores that were in there, which was pretty good. It was a great response. People are different, or they're busier, right? So it's not a local Vancouver Island community, that's for sure. So it was a little bit hard to get people to talk to you and kind of get them to stop and hear the story and that kind of stuff. But we did that, and then we went to a big food show in Anaheim right after that. So we were gone for a month, and we just came back. Big food show is called Expo West. It's retail buyers from all over the country and all over Canada. They kind of descend on the Anaheim Convention Center, and they look for new products that are there and make relationships with old products that are there. And yeah, it's pretty fun.
Brandon, who started Barnacle Systems, he did a trip down the coast at a much earlier stage, not when he'd expanded across the country. So, but it's great. I love the idea of Cascadia and expansion down the coast. So
yeah, and it's interesting because you don't really think about it. You just kind of think Canada, and that's the way I do anyway. I think kind of Canada first. But then when you think about it from a business perspective and logistics and these kinds of things, you got 40 million people in Canada, and it takes, the distance to Ontario and beyond and to Quebec, right, where the population is significantly farther than it is to Southern California, right? So for the same amount of logistic traveling or shipping costs, you can hit 80 million people going south. That kind of a thing, right? So we'll see how this kind of plays out with the tariffs and stuff. But I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure they'll work it out, and it won't affect us too much. Yeah. Or maybe, hopefully, they take food off of it completely, right? That would be ideal.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about some of that, but I think long term, between Canada, U.S., and Mexico, we all rely on the supply chains and the potash that comes from Canada, water issues, logistics, we all eat together at the table, right?
That's right.
There's definitely times in the summer where it's farm to table on Vancouver Island, and you can go to the market, anywhere from I think North Island to Mid Island to South Island, and you can feed your whole family. Like
Yeah.
there's without a doubt. But
Yeah.
my brother, he does grow produce up north, but there's a lot of people who don't have the space and don't have the logistics. So it's an integrated supply chain, and it's awesome. You're going south. You've had such great success going east, and I'm always like, oh, what about Nova Scotia and stuff? But I do take it into account, right? I had BC Hydro as one of our customers for many years, and Nova Scotia Power, and
Yeah.
two great customers, great to have. But in
Yeah.
Washington State alone, there's dozens of power utilities, right? So
Right.
like you said, like
Yeah.
you can double your market, not even
Yeah.
scraping the surface of the East Coast in the U.S., just staying to the West Coast.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and like you say, same for us. Like the West Coast is huge for us, right? And if we add in 7 million people that are in Washington, right, then that creates like almost double the BC market, right? So, yeah, it's a hard call, right? Because there's shipping and transportation costs and these kinds of things, but then there's also the exchange that is a lot different down there, right? So.
And I imagine once you get to a certain volume, the logistics costs are lower in the U.S. than they are in Canada.
Yeah, we don't have that volume in the U.S. yet, so
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to go, but yeah, it should be. It definitely should be. Well, it should be when you start to ship truckloads around, right, as opposed to single or double pallets, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Or shipping containers maybe is even better, right?
I haven't been involved in a business that does a lot of shipping and stuff, but I definitely know logistics customers and stuff. So it's interesting how the scale of the U.S. versus the scale and complexity of Canada on the shipping side is, and doing business on the island, because I definitely have heard that from other manufacturers that they have to ship product to the island, then ship it off, and it's a lot more than a mental hurdle. It's logistically expensive and.
Well, and like you say, for the island, for us, it was a business decision. Like, what do we do? Do we just stay kind of local and continue doing what we're doing here, or do we kind of try and see how far we can go, right? Because if we were to stay local, then we could have probably just done it on the island. You just buy more, and you make profit here, and you buy a facility or a warehouse that you can store things in. Or do you actually try and go big, right? And see if you can get it all the way across Canada or to Florida, for instance, right? The furthest place you can go from here.
Yeah.
Right? That's the goal, right? So
where are you at either by volume or by revenue now, and where do you plan to be in 3 years?
it's hard to say for revenue. We're at, we finished 1.5 this year as far as revenue goes. Trailing 12 months is 1.7. So it's growing, right? So we're always kind of growing a little bit. Where do I want to be in 3 years? Well, I'd like to be over 5, right? But we don't know how far we don't know how the US is kind of going to go yet, right? So it's a challenge because it's a new product, but because it has we have such a track record already in Canada, we're getting people to talk to us quite a bit, especially at that show. So because we have the numbers, right? So we can say, this is what happened with our competition here. This is what happened with our competition there. Yeah. And that competition is in the US as well. So we can say, yeah, in this market, that's not a local market to us, here's our data. And you're not a local market to us, here's our data. So hopefully it grows quite quickly in the US. And on the other hand, hopefully it doesn't grow that quickly, because if it grows too quickly, then I need a capital influx, right? So, yeah. So we'll see how that kind of plays out, but I'd like it to be, significant.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome. So I want to shift just briefly on the product, because like the product and health, because the biggest YouTuber in the world, Mr. Beast, few people know, but he's got Crohn's disease, right? Which is another one related to gut health and diet, right? So I don't want to press you as far as the health benefits, but tell me a little bit more about the product and how that fits in with health and nutrition. I'm hammering out a salad a day, sometimes two a day myself. So tell me specifically about Yeshi dressing and the
Well,
health.
nutritional yeast is a complete protein, right? So vegans use it as a cheese substitute, and because it has that cheesy, nutty flavor, but it also is high in B vitamins, right? So it also has high in glutamate, right, which is super good for your brain and brain health and gut health because it's quite high in fiber as well. But yeah, those are the biggest benefits of that particular product or that particular part of the product, and it's a higher protein source, right? So as much as you can, I always think about things from a gluten perspective because that's where my mind immediately goes, right? And so our whole brand is going to be gluten free, but I always think about it from a low sugar because I'm a low carb person. I always think about it from a low sugar and gluten free perspective. But I'm sure that everybody has something that's bothering them.
Yeah.
Some sort of allergen or whatever, one of the allergens on the allergen list might be bothering you, but you don't even know it, right? Because it doesn't affect you. Your tongue doesn't swell or something like that. Maybe you just get anxiety or maybe you just get a little bit of inflammation from it. So those are the things that I usually push on, is that it's quite clean label, right? You can read everything that's on there. We just switched from canola oil to sunflower oil, which is a significantly better oil than canola. Because I mean, sunflower seeds are the ones we eat, right? So we don't eat rape seeds and we don't eat grape seeds and we don't eat all the other seeds from the seed oils. So yeah, those are pretty much the biggest benefits of it. I think it's a clean label thing and you can read mostly what's in there is the biggest one. Some of our competition in the US especially, like they have really, really bad ingredients. Like for instance, one of them has phosphoric acid in it. And I'm like, that's interesting. Don't eat too much of that, right? Those kinds of things, like it's like really, really bad.
Yeah.
And we don't have preservatives or those kinds of things in our products. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
we have a natural preservative, but it's just like a super natural, kind of like a mold inhibitor, but it's made from smoke, right? It's made from oak smoke. So that kind of thing, right? So
in the U.S., are there still a lot of food dyes put in dressings?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there are. They use a lot of stuff for mouthfeel, right? And like especially in the dairy-free products, like ours is dairy-free as well. So in the dairy-free stuff, there's a lot for making that creamy kind of texture in your mouth and kind of making it seem like it's dairy.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the nutritional yeast too, because it has that. That's a natural thing from it. It creates that creaminess from it, right?
Okay, great. So,
Yeah,
gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan,
yeah.
um, and nutritional yeast. So there's a higher protein level. What percentage or how many grams of protein per serving? But I guess it's a small serving
Yeah,
unless
it's a
you're.
small serving. It's a two grams, right,
Yeah.
in the new one, and yeah. So but it's by better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that one of the benefits of it is that the taste profile is that umami flavor to it, and I think that it really appeals to kids because we get a lot of emails and messages from parents saying, "Hey, you know what? My kid won't eat salad. They won't touch a vegetable unless it has yeshi on it." Right? So, which is kind of interesting, right? And it wasn't the intention at all, but we're like, hey, this is great. At least we're getting it in kids' mouths, right? So,
And is that your ICP? Is your target customer a parent
yeah,
or it?
targets are parents for
Yeah.
sure, right?
Yeah.
Parents usually with stay at home, one of them stays at home would be ideal or busy, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking for something that's a little bit on the healthier side, and something quick and easy. Like you, yeah, we call Yeshi a dressing, but it's actually more of a condiment. You could put it on anything. Like if you put it on plain rice, it's amazing. That kind of a thing. So you can put it on anything you want. So it's a quick, easy way to make a meal taste great, especially if you don't know what you're doing, right? Not everybody's a chef, right? I know I'm not, you know. So
That's great. And is your wife part of the business now, or is she still?
yeah,
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, she basically does product development, and then a lot of customer service is part of hers. As the production kind of moved, it took her a while to find her place again. But we're innovating. We're starting to do some good innovation and bring out some new products, and so she's back in the kitchen being creative. So
Great. How many SKUs do you have currently?
we have 5 SKUs. We sell the nutritional yeast on its own 2 SKUs, so 7. And then we just before Christmas we released blue cheese. That's kind of on a limited thing. We were doing some market testing with it, so we'll see how that goes. And then we have a new product that we're going to start working on listing. We already have the development done on it, and we're going to start working on listing that new product over the next couple months. We just got our labels back and everything, but I'll leave it a secret as to what that product is.
All right, leave us hanging. I appreciate that. Good.
Or it's a new flavor, not a product. It's a new flavor.
What's one piece of advice you'd give somebody who's starting out a business on Vancouver Island?
If they don't have any experience, let's go from the perspective that they don't have any experience and they're just an entrepreneur who's trying to build. I'd say don't worry about what it is. You're not going to find your perfect product, because it's going to evolve. It's funny because people talk about businesses being their baby, and it's almost exactly the same. So you'll never have enough money to start, right? It'll never be the right time. You'll never be ready, right? And you have no idea what you're doing. Right? So it's really quite the same. Your baby's not going to be born perfect, and it's up to you to mold them into, a person or personality that, fits with the cultures and fits with society as it is, right? And of course, but also be different enough that they're an individual. So it's kind of the same as that. So you can never, if you have an idea, just dig into it and see if you can figure out a way and be creative enough to figure out a way to make it work. Yeah. Because if you like it, somebody else is going to like it too. Yeah. Right? That's pretty much, especially if it's a product, right? If it's a service, then you're based on your skills. But in that case, and you still think you're inadequate and you don't know anything, or somebody else knows more than you, until you dig into it, then you find out you actually are an expert, right?
Yeah. I think that's great advice, because it could be the 2008 recession. It could be, this crash, the fear of tariffs. It could be COVID. It could be, I'm worried about interest rates, but there is no better time to start. If it wasn't yesterday, start today.
Right. And it's always something. It's always going to be something, because if you can sell fear, well, then that'll always be around, right? Yeah. So if you try and look past all that stuff, it's never the right time. So, which means it's always the right time.
Well, and I think it's great, because going back to something you said earlier, like you saw this product idea, and then you're like, okay, how am I going to get to this market? And you got on the internet, right? And when I was just finishing high school, that's kind of when the internet broke out. But like, you didn't have the tools we had 10 years ago, much less the tools we have now. Because I punched a business idea into DeepSeek, which is a Chinese AI, and I got back. So based on my 20 years experience, I got it back about 2 weeks worth of work as far as an outline for the business that I've been thinking about starting for a long time. And it had database structures, it had platforms and markets, and I was blown away. There is no better time to start a business, because the fear that somebody has more knowledge than you is totally valid. Yeah. You can go out and get the knowledge. You can build the relationships. You can go to the markets. You can bring in experts from all over the world through AI. So it is a perfect time.
Right, exactly. And it's like, okay, so somebody else, you fear that somebody else won't want your product, or no one's going to buy it, or whatever the case may be, or you're not good enough. But it's also your niche, right, is not someone else's niche. Right? Like, for instance, I'm making salad dressing. There's other food companies out there. There's tons of other food companies out there that are making food, but they're eating salad dressing. You know what I mean? They're making vegan cheese, but they're eating salad dressing, that kind of a thing, right? So everybody wants everything, right? So there's no reason to kind of tell yourself you're not good enough or you can't do it or the market or the timing's not right or whatever. So I'm a firm believer in just start and it'll work itself out. If you don't give up and you just keep adjusting, right, and keep pushing forward, the market will tell you what's right, right? For instance, if I'm going to start, okay, so we're at Expo West. This is a great example. At Expo West, there's probably 50 water companies, right? So if somebody would say, well, I can't start a water company, there's 50 water companies already. But there's 50 water companies because water sells. So there's obviously room for one more water, right? That kind of a thing, right? So you might as well just make your water and stick it on the market. Talk to them. It'll be about how you present it to the community of whether they want it, right?
Yeah, so. Exactly. Good. And I want to jump back to a second thing that came. You talked about kind of the Yeshi origin story of discovering your own health and gluten intolerance and stuff, and how it affected your family. Do you want to say any more about that? Like being a dad and finding out these things later in life about taking care of our health? Because I had a journey like that. I was, a new dad in my, I think I was 40 or just about to turn 40. And I decided I wanted to wake up every day when my son woke up, whether it was 5 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and be in a good mood. And that meant to me cutting out alcohol, right? Because even if I was having one beer at that point in my life or two, I was like, I just don't feel as on in the mornings, right? So it affected my mood and stuff. So do you want to share any more about that parenting journey related to just being a parent or being a parent and an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's hard because my kids are grown now, so they're 26 and 23, 27 on the weekend. And, but at the time they were pretty young. So, and because of my confusion and my anxiety, I feel like I missed a lot of their growing up period, right? There was a lot of periods where I was kind of angry with them or doing things that, they were doing things that I wasn't pleased with and these kinds of things. And now I look back at it from a different perspective and I'm like, I wish I would have been more present there and had more time with them at the time. I mean, they obviously understand now, and it's been a long time since I've been off gluten, wheat specifically, I think. But yeah, it was kind of brutal. I got someone at the door. They're going to knock again. But it was kind of brutal. So, because I was so angry and because I had a lot of rage, so I couldn't, it was difficult. Those were difficult times for our family, and that was a difficult process for me to get through all of that. But as far as parenting specifically as teenagers and those kinds of things, I think it's really important to guide your children through their journey and help them through their journey and help them understand what their journey is instead of telling them, no, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that. I think it's more important for us to manage what they're doing. You can't keep them away from alcohol, but you can have conversations with them about alcohol, right? Like for instance, you can't keep them from going to the party because that's where their social outlet is. But it's kind of like managing your team in business, right? You have to manage them as your children. They're like your employees that you hug. Right? You have to, because you can't just say, no, you're not doing that, right? Then they don't respect you anymore because you're just being a dictator. But you can say, hey, you know what? I can totally understand why you would want to do that. And this was what happened to me when I did that. And it didn't work out so much, and I don't really like that feeling anymore. But I get it that you want to try that. I'd rather you tried it in front of us. I'd rather you tried it at us at home, and then we can kind of go through how you feel, and then next time you're at a party, you can manage yourself better, right? Those kinds of things, but same thing with anxiety too. It's not just, oh, you don't have anxiety. It doesn't mean anything. It's like, well, what is it? What are you afraid of? is it something you're eating maybe, or is it something that you're putting on your skin, or, is there something else that's happening to you, right? And I think those are the types of parenting that we need to do. Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. But you can't get away from it, right? So you have to manage them. So my kids grew up when texting just started, right? So Jace bought his own phone, and he, like, what am I going to say? You bought your own phone, right? So you're going to text your friends, but I have to be able to manage it and understand why and how he's communicating with his friends and what he's communicating with, but not be like a dictator about it, right? Yeah. So I have to say, yeah, you know what? Your friends are this and that, but make sure that they're not bullying you, and these are the words I want you to look for, and those kinds of things. Same thing with social media, like educate them on what it is. Just like our parents, my dad did. My dad took me to the bar when I was 16 to see if I could get in. But I know that that's his way of saying, hey, let's figure out if you can manage your alcohol before you go off to the bar with your brothers and start fighting and doing whatever, right? It's the same kind of thing, right? So same thing with social media, same thing with AI now, right? Like teaching your kids that, hey, not everything that you see is real. Not every text that you see is real. Not every email that you see, and not every social media post that you see is real, right? Those kinds of things are I think that's the way we got to look at it now. I still do it to my kids now, especially with AI and maybe having safe words and these kinds of things are important. We don't, not yet. Maybe we will after this, but no, but it's important, right? Because, how do you know that you shouldn't send money to somebody when, your kid's safe in the next room and they're saying, oh, I'm stuck in Libya and I need $10,000, or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's a really interesting world for kids and employees. I've been in a meeting, and an employee in our meeting received a text from me asking, saying, hey, I really need you to get me some gift cards right away. And she thought I was texting her during the meeting, and she went off and got scammed, and we reimbursed her. But yeah, just the technology is out there, and us being able to learn and share those experiences, right? Like, I learned about my health, you learned about your health, and your kids were able to see that kind of progression and stuff. I think it's super important, and that origin story for our business, right? I think is a good one, because you're up against some of the biggest, and some would say the baddest in the industry. I've got lots of food manufacturing clients over the years, and some of the biggest, they're not worried about the long-term health of their clients, and their salespeople might not have the health and knowledge. SATE, which is the Southern Institute of Technology in
Southern Alberta, Institute.
SAIT, SAIT. It's a great school. It's amazing the amount of people I've known from NATE, which is the northern one in Edmonton, and SAIT as well, just through my headhunting. Great schools, and your wife's education there, and yours as well, right? To be able to transition from IT to HVAC into manufacturing, retail, and distribution is a great story.
Yeah, well, like you say, it just gives you that resilience, right? So it's like, and this goes back to same thing teaching your kids. It's like, don't be afraid to try, right? It's like, you can, what can happen? Like, you failed, right? So what? So it's better than sitting on the couch all the time and not having any stories to tell your grandkids, right? So I failed. So what? I'm still going. I don't think of failure that way, because I still get to wake up tomorrow, right? So the only way I would fail is if I didn't wake up tomorrow, right? Because so what? So the whole thing fell apart, right? It's like, okay, I guess how much knowledge I gained, I'll just do it again, right? Yeah. I mean, there might be a bit of depression, but
but there'll always be another sunny day around the corner on Vancouver Island, and it's a really interesting kind of that origin story of the farmers market. When my parents moved to Vancouver Island, they came from kind of the Vanderhoof and Montreal, moving west, and eventually ending up on Vancouver Island, right?
Right.
And going to farmers market. I think this was in the 70s, and great kind of origin stories for a lot of Vancouver Islanders. And
I think it is too.
and to have a business that is now like going to dominate a portion of the U.S. Food market and change people's lives, right? I love that story because eating salad every day is not for everybody,
right,
in their minds. But if they realize something else that they've been eating every day isn't a fit, and this is a really great alternative. It gives you some protein, it gives you some vitamins, and it can be paired with something that actually helps you lose weight without drugs. Oh man, like to me that's a great story. Like I love the story of Ozempic, but like there's a lot of other good health stories going on.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, great.
Cool.
Well, awesome. One last question is related to business. Are there any services or businesses that you love on the island? Be it something business to business or business to consumer that you love, or one of your early partners. Any you'd like to kind of give a shout out to or come to mind?
I really like the story of Tree Island Yogurt too, because they did the same kind of thing, but they went with building a plant, and they have a plant in Comox, Cumberland, I think it is now. I think they're doing an amazing job up there. There's another young guy, Hazel's Ice Cream. I don't know if you know that one. He's doing really cool stuff with his ice cream, and he has the little cart, but he's not letting it stop there. He's going for like food service accounts and bigger accounts and pushing through, because it's tough. He's making his own ice cream bars, creamsicles and stuff. They're amazing, by the way. That's Sam. But yeah, those kinds of things. And then I think you had a guy on yours podcast last time, Damon from NZ Builders, right? I like what he's doing too. So
yeah. Oh, those are great. Makes me hungry. It's a little bit past lunch here. So I love ice cream. I actually saw there was an ice cream truck for sale. It was actually looked like frozen yogurt, but I was like, oh, I'm so interested, but it's not for me to buy an ice cream truck. But I'm thrilled that there's somebody I can go buy ice cream off of, because it's one of my highlights. You give up booze. You lose something that you can share with other people sometimes, but ice cream is a great one to share, and as are great salads, right? You can bring a salad to a party, and it's different than bringing a bottle of champagne and stuff, but it's something that really contributes, and it's like, oh, this dressing, this is different, right? So it's a good thing to bring to a party, right? And
a bottle of wine,
instead of a bottle of wine, and my friends have stopped. They used to. I remember the year I quit drinking, I probably had close to 100 ounces of rum.
Oh, yeah.
Because people kept on still buying me bottles of rum. I go, guys, I love this, but I'm now having to give it away on the other side. So it's not.
I also quit drinking a couple years ago. That was another. So if being gluten-free created a level of calmness and confidence, I went on a ketogenic diet. That created another level of calmness and confidence, and then not drinking alcohol was another level again of it's amazing what you put in your body and how it affects your brain and how it affects what you think about who you are. It's weird. It's almost like, I'm in the food industry, so I'm pretty sure this isn't happening, but it almost makes it seem like something's in the water or something's in the food to make us less confident, But but I think it has something to do with what's going on in our body and what we're putting in it, or it's inflammation or something. But the level of confidence that I have compared to before I quit drinking, and then before the gluten thing, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Great story. I think a lot of entrepreneurs will like this, and general public as well. So thank you for coming on the podcast, and
thank you.
We'll see your product in the stores. Yep. We might see a Super Bowl ad someday. Well, and since there's a little tariff war, we might see Stanley Cup ad. Let's go with that.
That's right.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, appreciate it. Talk to you soon.